Hey guys, it's Core Ross and welcome back to the 3D printing channel. Today we are making a cyberpunk style bike from AKIRA, which is a Japanese animated post-apocalyptic cyberpunk action film. I've not actually watched it, but when I'd seen this on Thingiverse, I thought I'm going to have to give this a go. It is one of the most complicated prints I've ever had to do. But I'm also very proud of this because everything you see here that I printed off, pretty much all of it was printed off with no kind of adhesion or stuff like that. I just had the printer set up basically perfect and everything came off incredibly well. So very little cleanup was needed on this. Also, the original bike is red, but I've only got purple filament to play with here. I'll also note the reason I was able to print off a lot of this stuff without any kind of adhesion or stuff like that is that the 3D print model here was well thought through. Someone really did put a lot of thought into it, and most of what you see here is actually just kind of snapped together. I did add glue at different points, but for the most part, this thing is incredibly well set up. And now you can see what I've done here. I've actually gone and assembled all the purple parts, or as many of them as I can, into different groups so that I can then spray paint them with a clear coat to get them a nice gloss finish. Now I could have gone with more gloss maybe, but I also just didn't want to overdo it as well. So I think this is a perfect balance. But yeah, major props to the original designer of this model. I think it is absolutely wonderful. There'll be a link in the description below if you want to go actually trying this out yourself. The construction of it does get quite complicated and definitely not the simplest of things to actually put together. There's a lot of stuff I'd redo a little bit differently, but for the most part, it is phenomenal. But now we'll start putting together the non-gloss elements. So you can see here how these parts are designed. So the actual insert and the piece itself is kind of got this angle to it all so that it can just kind of jam in without any glue. Now, if I was to redo something here, I would print these small pieces off maybe 5% smaller so they actually fit in easier and then just glue them in. Whereas with this, I had to basically come along and whack them in or pressure them in to get them to actually fit into these holes. So if I was to do this again, and for you guys out there, if you're going to try this yourselves, I would definitely scale back those bits about 5% or so, just to give yourself more room to work with and to use less kind of strength and pressure to actually install them. But as you can see, these are in pretty damn nice now and looking really freaking cool. We've got the small ones fitted. There's also a little fuel cap to be fit into that hole as well. But we're going to look at installing the seat now. So this goes into here, and this is another pressure fit, like no glue needed whatsoever. It just kind of slots perfectly in there once you've got that full construction of those purple bits together, and it looks really good. I'm always exceptionally happy when stuff goes together this well. Like that's the kind of pressure fit I want, where it just goes in, feels great, doesn't feel like I had to use too much pressure, but it's in there solid. And I also go ahead and install all the kind of console elements as well. And at this point, this could be the cockpit from a spaceship or a fighter jet. Either way, it looks cool, and putting it together was very satisfying. And that's also the reason I'm making these videos, because I'm absolutely enjoying building all this stuff using a 3D printer. So if you like this kind of content, hit subscribe, because I'm trying to get to the subscriber mark of 1,000 subs. So if you want to be one of the first, go ahead and subscribe. But up next, we are assembling the wheels. So I've already stuck together the hubcaps and the actual tires themselves. But what we need to do now is assemble these wheels. So they've been created with axles that are only one direction or can be positioned in a certain way. And yeah, it's just a matter now of putting these together. I do have to be very careful with the glue, because the wheels do actually turn on this model. So I want to make sure not to use too much glue and not have it kind of overflown to the point of where it's going to cause issues or anything like that. I'll also say that in the axles here, I originally put them off 100%, but I brought them back down to 95%, putting them off again, just so they would actually fit easily or easier into the holes. You can see there's still a pressure fit even at 95%, but they go in a lot easier than they did at 100%, where I would have totally broken something trying to whack them in. And now I'm kind of figuring out if I've got all this assembled correctly, if it's all going to line up properly, because this is an attachment point on the back of the vehicle, and I just want to make sure that I've got it the right way around, that I'm not, gluing it up the wrong way or something like that. However, I did find these wheels to just be incredibly well thought through, and actually gluing them up went incredibly smooth. There was one mistake, which we'll come up to shortly, where I did actually glue something out the wrong way around, but it was thankfully able to be corrected, because I use a super glue here, but it's a slow acting one, so that I can easily take stuff apart if need be. But yeah, as you can see here, assembling my wheels. And this one is specifically the rear wheel, which is far larger. But yeah, the axles are well thought out as well because, like I say, it can only go in one way, so that you've got your parts actually facing the right direction, rather than obviously you could end up, if it was just a simple circle, attaching it the wrong way around and having different bits pointing in different ways. And next up is a smaller front wheel. So this is where I messed up. I thought, what if I do the smaller part first, because that'll be easier. So I go, all right, put glue in the smaller hole first, and we'll get that glued up. We'll put glue in the bigger one just so that it's ready to go on top. But yeah, that'll be easier, right? To actually get that all lined up when we put it together. That'll be a wise choice. But it wasn't until I went and actually put this axle into the, what would this be, the hubcap, I guess. So I went and put that in. I was like, all right, cool. Now I can put the wheel on. And I was like, oh, well, you'll see when I discover my mistake, when I pick up the wheel here and try to put it on, because of course it can't fit. So I got to yank this out. This is why it's good to use a slower curing super glue, because if this was normal super glue, I'd be screwed. But just had to yank it on out, and then of course fit it on the other side first, put the wheel on, and then put our actual hubcap on the other side. And again, getting it pressured in there really well. And then just carefully and making sure there's no glue that looks like it's popping out or anything. And that's it. So we just got to leave these to dry now, and then we can attach them to the vehicle. This is probably the weakest and worst part of this 3D model, is where you connect them to the actual body. Out of everything else, it's so solid. And then that part is just, I don't think it's a very good connection point at all. It's the only real downside to this 3D model out of all of it, and easily the weakest part of the vehicle. And with everything else being made to be like so snapped together with incredible tolerance, and then just having those bits where you definitely do need glue to actually hold them together, definitely surprised me. However, with everything now basically done, it's all a matter of taking these kind of chunks that I've assembled and slapping them together. So this is the front bit that will fit on top of the thingy, but you gotta definitely have, I'd say, the wheel on first. So we're going to glue this on to begin with, and then it's just a matter of actually figuring out if I've got it upside down or not, because honestly, both ways up could fit on. I'm pretty sure this is wrong because it doesn't slot in quite right, whereas this, it just kind of feels like it's actually in there. Now it does hold in there without any glue, but obviously any kind of pressure from the top is going to cause it to buckle, so definitely want to glue this up. Now at this point, I'll tell you there's a whole bunch of other videos going over all kinds of 3D models. This is obviously one of the most complicated I've ever done, but there's also a bunch of simpler ones and equally complex ones as well on the channel. So go check the playlist and check all the videos, because I think you will find something on this channel that you'll love to see getting built in 3D. And any interaction is also great, thumbs up or comments as well. But yeah, here is the front wheel being attached and glued in place, and then just simply give it a little bit of time to solidify. And then we've got the rear wheel, which is the opposite of the front one. It has just basically a perfect attachment to the point of where it needs no glue to actually go on and feel like it's totally solid. And there we go, we actually have working wheels, which when I first downloaded this, I had no idea that was a thing. I didn't know this was going to be capable of rolling around. It also comes with an actual stand you can print as well. It doesn't need it, it actually stands by itself with its own balance. And then the final piece here is kind of the, I don't know what you'd actually call it, the bonnet or something, but it's the front top of this bike that we're going to now attach, which is a very difficult part to attach and get right. But after some wrestling, we did get this installed and it looks freaking cool. And it's almost complete, like it's 99% complete right now. And one more thing which will bring it all together. But yeah, I can't believe the wheels move, but we got to add the visor to this thing. So there's also a few 3D printed bits that I did not print off, like there's actually a speedo and stuff like that, and it's like just not to go too much. So this is my version completed. And yeah, that visor really does bring it all together once that's attached. It looks really, really good. And again, no glue needed for a lot of this stuff. And I did add glue in a lot of places just to be sure, but there's a lot of the stuff, like the back wheel is not attached by glue. It is just sitting on there with those nice attachment points. So yeah, super, super impressed with this thing. This was a heck of a lot of fun. I'll leave you with some high quality images of it, and you guys can let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Well worth a 3D print, but I would say this is much more expert level, and it just shows that I've got my kind of 3D modeling skills locked in now, and I actually got the printer set up incredibly well to print this all off without any issues, and it all just looks really, really good.